Why Not best friend.
Like she's only in my top 12. Like my top 8.
Yeah. Well, she didn't show up on Snapchat, but like in my heart.
So like in my exactly.
Hello, and this is the case between Isabel Murray versus the USG Senate Tempe. Is both parties present and accounted for? Ms. Murray?
Yes.
And representing USG Senate Tempe, Mr. William Smith?
Yes.
Okay. So how's this going to work? You both have 15 minutes on opening remarks. During that time, you cannot talk to the other side. You only direct to us. And we can interrupt at any time and ask you questions. After that, both sides have the 15 minutes. We normally give you a 5-minute recess, if you need it, to prepare closing remarks, which will be 10 minutes each. During that 10-minute period, you can bring up previous statements from the other side. Again, no talking to each other, directly to us. Ms. Murray, are you going to represent yourself?
Yes.
Okay. You have 15 minutes.
Am I allowed to introduce new evidence?
No. Oh, that's another thing. You cannot bring up why you were impeached in question. Only talk about what you gave to us in our study. Okay, you have 50 minutes. Oh, and I'll give you a 5-minute reminder when you have that much time. Go ahead.
So directed towards you?
Yes.
Okay, so this case isn't about defending my actions, although I do have a defense for that as well. This is about the failure to follow procedure on the part of USG. Am I allowed to play an audio clip of the proceedings or no?
That will count for your time.
I'm sorry, objection. I would like to object to the playing of an audio clip because it's part of the evidence. USG has not had time to look at it. Because it's been edited, it lacks authentication, and therefore there's prejudice and lack of authentication involved. It was not brought forward in a timely manner so that the defense could review it.
Okay, sorry.
We have an unedited version as well, and it was posted in the space that they would have been able to.
Again, there was no time. It was brought forth yesterday, but it's not a very timely fashion, and what's more, it's not relevant to the claim at hand, which was sent out several weeks ago.
Because we don't have it either, so we can't.
All right, sure. Okay, so in the audio, and for everyone who's at the hearing, you can clearly hear that that the parliamentarian Gupta ruled that the impeachment had failed and voting was closed. He then stated that that about 10 seconds later he said that someone changed their vote. He did not say, oh, a new vote came in. It was someone changed their vote. I'm pretty sure he would have said, I don't have all the votes yet, if that were the case. So you can hear him say, someone had changed the vote, the motion has passed. Then there's a good deal of confusion. And following that, you can hear Senator Ashlock and Will Smith discussing what to do. Mr. Ashlock also states that according to procedure and parliamentary procedure, that once a vote has been ruled on, it is closed. Following Robert's Rules of Orders, once they have closed the voting, that's it. If they had wanted to continue the impeachment, the proper procedure would have been for them to state that they were someone to bring up that they wanted another vote, to make a motion for another vote for impeachment. But they did conduct a revote after the fact. It was mentioned multiple times, and votes were changed during the hand vote as well, during the division, which is not a revote. However, Mr. Ashlock refers to it as it sufficing as a revote. Again, according to parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Orders, you can't change votes and you can't do a revote without making a motion. So they did not follow parliamentary procedure. Therefore, their grounds for impeachment are a separate issue. But according to procedure, I should not have been impeached. I think that if I'm going to be impeached for breaking the rules, I think it would behoove USG to make sure that when they impeach me, they also follow the rules. Otherwise, we have an issue of hypocrisy and a non-impartial carriage of justice, and the rules not applying equally to all sides. That's all I have.
Any more questions?
You stated that the division call was different from the impeachment call, but according to the documents submitted by the defense, they're identical. So no one changed their vote in the revision, or the division call of the impeachment vote.
Yeah, division isn't a revote, and yet the motion failed by one person, and when there was a revote, more than one person. It was more than just a simple majority.
But just to be clear, you did say that the revision was different from the original vote, and then people did change their vote.
Yes, the original vote was, okay, the motion has failed, and then someone changed their vote.
Do we know who that someone is?
No, I asked for the information and I never received it.
Well, from what Mr. Gupta, the parliamentarian, said, that he just more or less just jumped the gun before the vote was done calculating anything. That's what it sounds like. I don't know if you have the exact same thing as he does.
Well, the issue is that he, typically, if all the votes are not in, actually, every time I've ever been in a Senate meeting, which is, there are quite a few of them that I've been to, if all the votes aren't in, if they're not done calculating, they will say that either they need more time or they won't announce it. Even if he just jumped the gun, even if it's just a mistake, that's still violating parliamentary procedure.
Anyone else?
Do you know that if the vote was closed before he notified Smith?
I'm not really privy to what they say between themselves. All I know is that that Will Smith said that the vote failed, and then, or no, Tommy Gupta said that the vote, the parliamentarian told Will Smith, and Will Smith read out that it had failed, and then 10 seconds later, they said that it.
But do you know at the time that he told Will Smith that when he told him that the vote was closed?
What's the question?
I'm sorry, objection. There's something.
Oh, by him announcing it?
Yeah,
That,
ma'am, she has to talk for herself. You can't do anything else.
by him saying that the motion had failed, that means that the vote was closed. Once he, Mr. Ashlock, who oversees USG, also stated that once it has been announced, the vote is closed, and the motion, and that should have been the end of it. I'm not sure why rules were allowed to be broken.
But it would also be a simple computer error too. Because once they took the second revote, you then did it impeached.
It's not, you can't do a revote, that's the thing. If there were a revote, someone should have made a motion to do a revote.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't, it's the division call. So after the division call was taken, it did reflect the updated, the post after he announced and then the second saying that it had passed, the revision vote did match that. So I guess my question is, if he stated that it was closed at the time, he said that it did not pass, and you're saying that it should have been done, that was it, that should have been the decision. Yet, and then they did re-announce that it did pass. The revision vote did match the second updated call. So are you saying that? I'm not sure. I guess are you saying that between the time that they announced it, someone changed their vote for the first time, and then also maintained that change for the division call?
Yes. The issue is that voting was closed. Once the parliamentarian said it has failed, that was it. According to parliamentary procedure, Senator should have said, I motion to, they should have made a motion to redo the voting because of irregularities. No procedure was followed in the way things went. Pretty familiar with Robert's rules.
There's no more questions? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have any?
Yeah, the division shouldn't have anything to do with the, with the original vote. So once that was done, it should have just been done then and had another. I assume you all are familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, the parliamentary procedure.
Yes. So just a clarification though, so you're claiming there was 2 votes then?
No. My claim is that they broke parliamentary procedure by basically saying, oh, someone changed their vote, and now we're going to do this. The exact words were, someone changed their vote. It wasn't like, oh, there's a computer error. It's pretty easy to see whether or not someone changed their vote.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, defense, you have 15 minutes.
Stand there.
Whatever you want.
Good idea. Well, this is what we're dealing with here really isn't a discrepancy in the bylaws, and it's not a discrepancy in Robert's rules. What we're dealing with here is an error, latency, if you will, thanks to the electronic system. Software isn't perfect, especially when it's receiving an intense amount of commands there tends to be delays, and it tends to maybe take a little bit to refresh. This happens with computer programs, software, apps, etc. What we had happen at the meeting on October 21st was we had a vote taken to impeach the then Senator Murray. The result of which, initially, what our software, this iClicker software that we have, showed us was a vote of 16-5. And when Parliamentarian Gupta saw this, he notified me. However, in that time that he notified me, the system updated itself. The system showed it was in fact 17-4. There was indeed, in fact, some confusion. Where do we proceed from there? Ultimately what we did is we proceeded with a division. This was made very clear to the senators. We were calling for division. It's written in our minutes, which are posted on the USG website, that division was called for. And the result of which was a hand raise by those who had voted yay and a hand raise by those who had voted no. This is a standard practice in order to clarify if there has been any confusion regarding the vote at hand. What's more, going back to the electronic side of things, this is how the iClicker software works. It's something that's used in classrooms across this campus, on other campuses as well, and it's similar, I don't know how similar, to an electronic system that's utilized in official government legislatures on a state and national level. And what it is you click on the option for which you would like to vote. So A, if you're voting yes to impeach Senator Murray, B, if you're not, C, if you abstain. There is a window of time, just as there's a window of time in a classroom when a professor has posted a multiple choice question and wants his or her students to click on the answer that they would like to have submitted. There's a window of time when they can do that. In that window of time, senators are allowed to change their answers. They are allowed to click on which one, A, B, or C that they would like to choose. And so what happened was, during that window of time, from the moment that Parliamentarian Gupta opened the voting session, which is very clean cut, because if you look at how the software is set up, it's you click the proceed to vote, the button for that. He has to fill out the options for how A is this, B is this, and it's kept track of. And in fact, we provided you with a record of an Excel spreadsheet wherein the iClicker software automatically inputs. We do not manually input this. This is automatically inputted by the software into the system on this Excel spreadsheet of the voting record from each of the votes for the entire year and for years past. And so the result of which was that during that window of time, someone decided to switch their vote. Now, I know that we're hearing a lot of, well, Parliamentarian Gupta said someone changed their vote. Yes, he said that. He didn't say when someone changed their vote. Someone changed their vote during that window of voting. And because it's a software, and because it's not perfect, the result of which was a delay in the system and a delay in the refresh. And consequentially, the system took a little bit longer to refresh itself after Parliamentarian Gupta closed the voting session. And indeed, you only have, between the time he opens the voting session and the time he closes the voting session, for a senator to submit their vote. And so what had happened was someone had decided to switch their vote during this period of time. There's no way that they could have done this when the vote was closed, because the vote is closed. You can't switch your vote after the fact. And consequently, it showed that, in fact, because someone had switched their vote, it was 17-4. Now, there was indeed confusion about this. There was a call of, does that announcement count? The initial announcement. Do we go into a revote? As the minutes state, there was a call for division. And as senators can attest to, there was immediate, I had spoken, we're calling for division. This is a clarification of the previous vote. Parliamentarian Gupta brought out a pad to record all of the raised hands to say who had voted yes, who had voted no, and it was in line with the automatically inputted Excel spreadsheet that the iClicker software does itself and inputs from the results of that window of time wherein there's a voting session. So again, this is not a result of us not abiding by our bylaws. In fact, we did things by the book. There was a confusion we called division. But in fact, this is a result of a software that it works very well for us, but as the testimony from past parliamentarian LaPointe says, and as the statement from parliamentarian Gupta says, there is latency. There can be delays, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer to refresh. That's why after every vote that we ever do, regardless of the vote, there's always a period of time when parliamentarian Gupta wants to wait before he calls the vote, because just to make sure that the system has refreshed itself. This time, that didn't happen, but the system refreshed itself. So,
sorry, Chairman, if you have a question. When parliamentarian Gupta signified that it did not pass, at that time was that after his allotted time to allow the senators to vote?
yes, he closed the voting.
And then motioned.
He motioned it. He said he didn't motion.
Or sorry,
he
so
said,
he closed the voting and then
he gave me the signal that it did not pass. And then as he said that, he said, oh wait, the system just refreshed itself. It did pass. Someone changed their vote. What he meant by that was someone changed their vote during that window of time, because it's impossible that someone could have changed their vote during the time that, outside of that window of voting, because in software, when you close out that session of voting, it's like if a professor closes out the answer submission time for voting, you can't just continue to click and submit answers,
Okay, so the vote was prior to his signaling of the motion didn't pass.
Yes.
Objection? According to the audio, it was not immediately after.
Objection, you cannot refer to the audio because that's evidence that was
according
not
to the vote?
authenticated and it's not timely.
Okay, according to the vote, according to what actually happened, which we have proof of, it was several seconds after it was said that the motion failed and that it did not go through. It was not immediately after.
I'm sorry, but they're referring to evidence that has not been brought forth to us in a timely manner, therefore it can't be relevant. It hasn't been authenticated, we haven't seen it, it's prejudiced against you as
I'm just saying evidence as in what actually happened in the court.
But we don't have that evidence to look at ourselves. That's the thing. We can't base anything on if we don't have it. So deny it.
Yeah, so then you can't take either side.
Well, that's for us to decide.
Now I have a question. How often has votes occurred where parliamentary Gupta has, quote unquote, jumped the gun and reviewed, said a decision before the actual vote has been determined?
I can't remember to my knowledge the last time. What I can tell you though is that this isn't the first time that there's been delays in the system. I remember as a senator, yes, as I remember as a senator last year and as a Senate president this year, there's often a few seconds, or 10 seconds or something, where I remember parliamentarian LaPointe or, parliamentarian Gupta this year is waiting for the system to update itself. One of the results of this is the fact that it's, so many inputs at the same time can cause delays. And indeed, probably the switch of someone's vote probably caused the system to be delayed even further because it then had to recalculate the vote that it was already calculating at that point in time. The fact is, yeah.
For my clarification, so when he, parliamentary Gupta, called the first decision, voting was officially closed. And then after the time delay from the first to the second, no one could possibly change the vote.
Exactly.
Okay, that's all. Just for my clarification.
Yes, sorry.
And do you have anything else to say?
I just want to say that I understand that things were said at the meeting, and I understand that different things were said, but the software recorded it. No one manually inputted that. That was automatically inputted from that voting session. That was open and closed. There's no way that someone could have voted after the fact. And then we called division. You can see that in our minutes. We called division, and the result of that was that it showed consistency between the vote that showed up on the automatically inputted Excel spreadsheet and the consistency with the raised hands in the room.
Objection, has this been verified by the company? Has this been verified by the company? Have you gotten information from the company itself stating that this is something that happens frequently, given that it's used in government and classrooms? I've never had that happen in classrooms or the Senate before.
Well, what we have is the testimony from the current parliamentarian, the parliamentarian beforehand, and as well the digital printout. So I think you've also received the same.
So, but not from the actual company itself saying that this is a problem that happens frequently, or that this is something that can happen?
No, but we do have testimony from people who do use the software. That
From my campus, it doesn't even work at my campus. It's a problem. It's more of a self-identity Oh, you had 4 minutes, by the way. Okay, so would you like a 5-minute recess to make your final arguments to present to us? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, one of you, we have to trust that one of you is going to go to the opposite side of the room than the others. Go outside, talk to each other, come back in. I'll go and get you in 5 minutes. Like I said, you have 10 minutes to present your closing arguments. That is when you can bring up evidence that they brought up. If you want to clarify it even more for us, I will let you know when there is 3 minutes left in your time. Prosecution, 10 minutes, starting now.
Alright, so, the defendants brought up that there's a delay in voting. That isn't the issue and that's not the argument. It's that if the parliamentarian states that the vote has been closed, it has been heard by the minute-taking intern, and then the vote has recorded and finished. And if the Senate was acting appropriately according to Robert's Rules of Orders of Parliamentary Procedure, someone should have motioned to take a recordable vote, and we could have avoided this entire debacle. The fact that he called for division means that he believed that there was a mistake in the vote. And the fact that there's no time record of when votes are taken led to the ambiguity of the claim made by the defense. If Gupta had forgotten to close the vote, then anyone could change the vote anytime. The delay cannot be verified. Also, there's no record of him closing the vote. As former Senator Parra, who has presided over Senate, as well as Senator Hibbs have informed me, there has not been an ambiguity with the system to their experience, nor to mine. However, I do take into account that these are just opinions, much like the Senate presidents and the parliamentarians. And these are individual experiences and are in no way verifiable. Thank you.
He did say that he closed the vote, though.
He said he closed the vote.
Yes.
Is that verified? Is it in the record that says it was
His statement, that's all we have.
Yeah, so it's not verified. It's just a statement.
Yeah,
People
but
lie.
you don't have any evidence that, contrary to that either.
No, but
Both
that's
sides don't have any. So we have to go by the word of.
why is his word more important than mine?
We're just, because he gave a statement. That's the only evidence that we have that he closed the vote.
So you argue that because he had called it the parliamentarian, that's the decision that should stand?
Yes.
So theoretically, what if it was 021 and he said he called for impeachment? Like what if you're giving all the power to the parliamentarian instead of what the vote system actually says? Like what if there was an error in any vote, in any bill that's before the Senate? And if it's just the parliamentarian that calls it when it's the exact opposite, should the parliamentarian's decision and word stand more than the vote system actually claims it was?
I think it should be verified and that they should follow the procedure. It's just a matter of following procedure, that's all.
I guess, and my question is, so the defense did provide an actual example of Robert's rules and highlighted that it is, it's not a good copy, but if it's, the vote is contested, the responsibility rests on them to, follow these rules. And so I guess what I see is the division was them being sure that something that a software kind of issue or something.
Just to be clear.
Okay, yeah, so division. But that you called it, but both of those votes do match.
Again, that's not the issue I have.
I guess what the issue, so I guess my question directed to you is if it did not, if what you're claiming is that someone switched their vote after he said that the motion had failed.
My claim is that they didn't follow procedure.
That did fall, so right, so saying that, when after he said that the motion had failed, someone switched their vote between the time after he said it was closed and then it was opened, or the time it was closed and then he said that it did pass.
That's a possibility, yes, but the bottom line is just that procedure wasn't followed.
So your alternative to what happened was that to motion for a revote, correct? That was the outcome that you would have wanted to see.
Yes.
With there being a discussion. So
Not necessarily discussion, just following the rules.
but the rules say.
Is that a full copy of
For
Robert's
division.
It's the copy.
It's
of
the
the
for
section.
voting section. So.
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
Oh, so the alternative, the way that you would have wanted things to go that night,
According to rules, yeah.
according to the rules, would to be called for a revote and not for a division.
You would, no, it would be a motion to revote, obviously I'm not gonna,
Do you want, so you motion for the division. Would you have preferred, so you would motion for the division and then with the division matching, isn't that not the rules, is to finish and after, when votes be taken, show of hands, affirmative, negative. I guess, if there was a discrepancy between the two, I would understand the need for a motion to revote because obviously there have been some discretion. But the fact that the online voting or the clicker voting and the hand raise didn't match, I am confused on why you would see the need for the revote.
because according to parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order, once it has been announced, the vote has been announced, that should have been the end of it, and if people thought there's a discrepancy, then what should have happened is someone should have motioned for a revote.
Was it motion?
No, there was,
That seems something pretty easy to do.
yeah, it could have been
Why
very
would
easily
you
avoided.
She cannot talk to, she can't talk to us.
Yeah.
Okay, is that everything? Are you done? Okay. You have 3 minutes. Okay. Defense, you have 10 minutes, starting now.
So, what Ms. Murray is presenting to you all is an idea that the situation is perceived as biased, but technology is not biased. Technology is black and white, it's open or closed, it's this way or that way. Senate Parliamentarian Gupta opened the voting session, at which time senators have the freedom to vote, to change their vote, to abstain from voting. This was followed after a period of time by Parliamentarian Gupta closing the vote and a period of time to wait for the result. Parliamentarian Gupta initially reported to me that the impeachment had not passed, but had then immediately seen the system update itself because someone had switched their vote during that window of time, during that period of time between the point where you can open and you can close the vote. And the correct number was recorded. This was followed by a confusion about what the vote was, which was then followed, as we provided in the evidence in hand, with a call for division, and which is also present in the USG minute, in the Senate minutes from that night, which are available on our website. Senator Murray called for this division. The then Senator Murray did not call for a revote, did not call for a hand raise, called for a division to clarify the vote, at which point in time, Parliamentarian Gupta recorded by raise of hands which senators had voted in the vote yes and had voted in the vote no, and then cross-checked this with the technology that we rely on, the software that we rely on that had this delay. And we found through cross-checking, through checking with the Senate, and then cross-checking with this data in front of us that had been automatically inputted by the system and could not have had any more inputs after the point in time that Parliamentarian Gupta had closed the voting session, that indeed it did line up, that indeed it was accurate. We followed the bylaws, we followed Robert's rules here. And again, what it came down to in the end was a reliance on technology that albeit is imperfect, that albeit, yes, it is a black and white issue because it is technology, but there was a latency and there was a delay. And the result of which is that we went through the check and we went through the cross-check. And we made sure that we were by the book.
So Senator Murray could have called
done?
I am.
Okay. So that is the finished mark of the proceeding. We will now adjourn to our chambers and hopefully be back in a couple minutes or sometime, who knows, with a decision. So whoever wants to sit here, wait around. Yes.
We said in some time.
It could be today. It could be, who knows?
I think the question is it in our best interest to stick around?
Yes. And if we don't decide in like 20 minutes, Dan will come and say they have yet to reach their decision. You can go. Great, thank you. I think you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, we're back. In the case of Isabel Murray versus USG Senate Tempe, the court has ruled 4-0. The vote stands. Ma'am, I'm sorry, you have been impeached. The reasoning behind that is you seem to be aware of Robert's rules, and it says in Robert's rules that you can call for a revote. And you did not, and it's not up to us to call the revote for you. And with that, we also set a precedent, effective immediately for all campuses. In cases of impeachment and censures, the person accused cannot vote for themselves, and the sum total will be subtracted by that one. So in this case, since there was 21 senators, she could not have now, if this was effective at the time, you cannot vote at all in your impeachment, and it would be going down to 20. So that's effective amongst all campuses immediately. Okay? So I'm sorry, ma'am, you didn't get the decision that you wanted, but As of right now, the case is adjourned. Thank you.
Point of clarification, an impeachment is actually
motion.
an impeachment is a motion, she was removed from office.
Yeah, that's our rules.
Impeachment is the trial. She was removed from